In the remote village in Ikorodu, Nigeria, 22-year-old Adunni lived a life of complete isolation. The young woman had inherited her family's cassava farm after losing both parents in a tragic motor accident 3 years earlier. Every morning, she would wake before dawn to tend her crops, then carry heavy baskets to the local market where she sold her produce. The villagers whispered about the strange girl who never spoke to anyone, never attended social gatherings, and seemed content living alone in her small mud house surrounded by endless cassava fields. Her only companions were the birds that nested in her farm and the occasional stray dog that wandered through her property. Adunni had grown accustomed to the loneliness. She found peace in the repetitive nature of farming, planting, watering, harvesting, selling. The routine gave her life structure and purpose, even if it lacked human connection. Her parents had been her world, and after their death, she had withdrawn completely from society. One particularly hot afternoon, as Adunni bent over her cassava plants pulling weeds, she noticed movement in her peripheral vision. A monkey sat quietly at the edge of her farm, watching her with unusual intensity. Most monkeys would flee at the sight of humans, but this one remained perfectly still, its dark eyes fixed on her every movement. The monkey was different from others she had seen. Its fur was cleaner, its posture more dignified, and there was something almost human-like in its expression. When Adunni straightened up to get a better look, the monkey tilted its head curiously but did not run away. "What do you want?" Adunni asked softly, surprised by the sound of her own voice. She rarely spoke aloud anymore, having no one to talk to. The monkey seemed to understand her question, responding with a gentle chattering sound that sounded almost like conversation. For several minutes, girl and monkey regarded each other across the cassava field. Finally, the monkey stood, gave what appeared to be a small bow, and disappeared into the forest. Adunni stood there long after it had gone, wondering if she had imagined the entire encounter. The next morning, Adunni found the monkey waiting for her in the same spot. This time, instead of running when she approached, it began following her around the farm at a respectful distance. As she worked, the monkey watched intently, occasionally making soft sounds that seemed like commentary on her activities. By the third day, the monkey had begun helping. It would retrieve tools she had dropped, organize her harvest baskets, and even bring her fresh water from the nearby stream in a large leaf. The other farmers laughed when they saw Adunni working alongside the monkey, calling her crazy and making jokes about the girl who preferred animals to people. Adunni decided to name the monkey Femi, after her late father. The name seemed to please the creature, who would respond immediately whenever she called. Femi displayed intelligence that amazed Adunni daily. He could sort cassava by size, arrange tools in order, and seemed to understand complex instructions. The villagers' mockery grew louder as weeks passed. "That girl has lost her mind," they would say. "Talking to a monkey like it's human. She needs a husband to bring her back to reality." But Adunni ignored their comments. For the first time since her parents' death, she felt less alone. Femi had routines and preferences that seemed almost human. He would sit quietly while she ate, waiting for her to offer him food. He kept himself meticulously clean, grooming in the stream every morning. Most remarkably, he seemed to understand her moods, offering comfort when she was sad and celebration when the harvest was good. One evening, as storm clouds gathered overhead threatening a severe thunderstorm, Adunni watched Femi shivering under a thin canopy of leaves. The harmattan season was approaching, bringing cold winds and heavy rains. Without hesitation, she opened her door and called to him. "Femi, come inside. You cannot stay out in this weather." The monkey hesitated at the threshold, as if understanding the significance of entering her home. After a moment, he stepped inside, and Adunni closed the door behind him. Neither of them knew this decision would change their lives forever. Living together, Adunni and Femi developed an even deeper bond. The monkey helped with household chores, kept her company during lonely evenings, and seemed to genuinely care for her well-being. The arrangement worked perfectly until Adunni fell seriously ill with malaria during the peak of the rainy season. For days, she lay delirious with fever, unable to care for herself. Femi never left her side, bringing her water, keeping cool cloths on her forehead, and even attempting to feed her small portions of fruit. His dedication was extraordinary, more devoted than many humans would have been. During one particularly severe night of fever, Adunni drifted in and out of consciousness. She was vaguely aware of Femi's presence beside her, his warm fur against her skin as he tried to keep her comfortable. In her delirious state, reality and dreams blended together. She felt comforted, protected, and less alone than she had in years. The fever broke after 5 days, leaving Adunni weak but recovering. Femi had nursed her through the worst of it, and she felt overwhelming gratitude toward her unusual companion. Their bond had deepened through the crisis, and she began to think of him less as a pet and more as family. Weeks passed as Adunni regained her strength. She returned to farming with Femi's help, and life seemed to return to normal. However, 2 months after her illness, Adunni began experiencing strange symptoms. She felt nauseous in the mornings, unusually tired, and noticed changes in her body that confused and worried her. At first, she attributed the symptoms to lingering effects of the malaria. But as they persisted and intensified, a terrible possibility began to form in her mind. The thought was so impossible, so ridiculous, that she tried to dismiss it entirely. One morning, as she vomited violently behind her house, the truth could no longer be denied. Adunni was pregnant. But how could this be possible? She had never been intimate with any man. She had barely spoken to men, let alone allowed physical contact. As the reality sank in, Adunni looked at Femi, who was watching her with what seemed like guilt and concern in his eyes. The impossible thought that had been lurking in her subconscious finally surfaced, and she stared at him in horror and disbelief. Unable to hide her morning sickness any longer, Adunni sought help from Mama Kemi, the village's traditional healer and midwife. The elderly woman examined her thoroughly before delivering the shocking confirmation that Adunni had dreaded. "Child, you are with baby," Mama Kemi announced matter-of-factly. "About 3 months along, I would say." Adunni's world collapsed. "But that's impossible. I have never been with any man. I have never even been close to a man." Mama Kemi studied her with knowing eyes. "The body does not lie, my daughter. This baby is real and it is growing inside you. You must tell me who the father is so we can arrange proper marriage." "There is no father," Adunni cried desperately. "I live alone. I work alone. I have no contact with men." Word of Adunni's pregnancy spread through the village like wildfire. The gossips had a field day speculating about the mysterious father of the hermit girl's baby. Some suggested she had been secretly meeting men in the forest. Others whispered about supernatural encounters or spiritual possession. The village women confronted Adunni in the market, demanding answers. "You cannot fool us," they said. "Babies do not appear from thin air. Tell us who you have been sneaking around with." When Adunni maintained her innocence, the accusations grew more vicious. Some called her a liar, others suggested she was possessed by evil spirits. The men made crude jokes about the quiet girl who had been hiding her wild nature. The situation became unbearable when the village elders demanded she appear before them for questioning. They gathered under the ancient baobab tree where community justice was dispensed, their faces stern with disapproval. "This scandal brings shame to our village," declared Chief Adelik, the head elder. "An unmarried woman carrying a mystery child violates our traditions. You will name the father or face the consequences." Through all of this torment, Femi remained by Adunni's side, but she began to view him differently. His presence, once comforting, now filled her with confusion and suspicion. When she looked into his eyes, she saw something that resembled guilt, understanding, and sorrow that seemed far too human for an ordinary monkey. The weight of suspicion finally became unbearable. One evening, as Femi sat quietly in the corner of her house, Adunni could no longer contain her growing certainty about the impossible truth. The way he looked at her, the guilt in his eyes, the timing of everything, it all pointed to one horrifying conclusion. "It was you, wasn't it?" she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "During my illness, when I was unconscious and helpless, you did something terrible to me." Femi's reaction confirmed her worst fears. Instead of the confused chattering she would expect from an animal, he became perfectly still, his eyes filled with unmistakable shame and remorse. He understood every word she spoke, and his silence was an admission of guilt. "You destroyed my life," Adunni screamed, all her pain and rage exploding at once. "I trusted you, cared for you. I brought you into my home, and you violated me when I was too sick to protect myself." She grabbed a broom and began hitting Femi, crying hysterically as months of confusion and humiliation poured out. "You are not just an animal. You are something evil. You have ruined me completely." Femi did not try to escape or defend himself. He accepted her blows with what appeared to be acceptance of deserved punishment. When she finally exhausted herself, he slowly walked to the door, turned back to look at her one last time with eyes full of sorrow, and left. "Never come back," Adunni shouted after him. "I never want to see you again. You have made me an outcast. You have destroyed any chance I had for a normal life." That night, Adunni cried until she had no tears left. She felt violated, betrayed, and completely alone. The one being she had trusted had taken advantage of her in the most horrible way possible. She had been intimate with an animal, and now she carried the proof of that unnatural union in her womb. The next morning, villagers found Femi sitting outside Adunni's door, looking thin and miserable. When they tried to chase him away, he moved only far enough to remain visible from her window. Day after day, he maintained his vigil, growing weaker as he refused to eat or care for himself properly. Adunni ignored his presence, but she could not ignore the guilt that began to creep into her anger. Whatever he was, whatever had happened, Femi was clearly suffering as much as she was. The village council's patience had reached its limit. Chief Adelik sent word that Adunni must appear before them immediately for final judgment. Her continued refusal to name the father of her child had become a matter of community honor, and they would no longer tolerate her defiance. Adunni arrived at the meeting place to find the entire village assembled. Men, women, children, and elders all gathered to witness her judgment. The atmosphere was tense with anticipation and disapproval. "Adunni, daughter of the late farmer Joseph," Chief Adelik began formally, "you stand accused of bringing shame to our community through your immoral behavior and lies. For the final time, we demand you name the father of the child you carry." "I have told you the truth," Adunni replied quietly. "I do not know how this happened. I have never been intimate with any man." "Lies!" shouted one of the elders. "Children do not appear through magic. You have been sneaking around with someone, and we will discover who it is." The crowd murmured agreement, their faces hard with judgment. Some of the younger women looked at her with pity, but most showed only contempt for what they saw as stubbornness and deception. Pastor John, the village's young Christian minister, stepped forward hesitantly. "Perhaps we should show mercy," he suggested. "This young woman has suffered greatly already. Maybe there are circumstances we do not understand." "Silence!" Chief Adili commanded. "There are no mysterious circumstances. Only sin and lies." He turned back to Adunni. "You have 3 days to name the father and arrange marriage, or you will be banished from this village forever. We will not shelter immoral women who corrupt our community." As the crowd dispersed, murmuring among themselves about the scandal, Adunni felt completely hopeless. She had no father to name, no man to marry, and no way to prove her innocence. Banishment would mean certain death, as a pregnant woman could not survive alone in the wilderness. That evening, as she sat contemplating her impossible situation, an elderly stranger appeared at her door. He was dignified and well-dressed, with kind eyes and an air of wisdom that immediately commanded respect. "My daughter," he said gently, "I have traveled far to speak with you about your situation. I believe I can help you understand what has happened to you." The elderly stranger introduced himself as Baba Tund, a traditional priest and keeper of ancient knowledge from a distant village. His presence brought both hope and fear, as Adunni sensed he knew secrets that could change everything. "I have heard about your situation," Baba Tund began, settling himself comfortably in her small home. "The monkey you call Femi, the mysterious pregnancy, the confusion and shame. I am here to tell you that none of this is your fault." Adunni stared at him in desperate hope. "What do you mean? Please, if you know something that can help me, I will listen to anything." "The creature you know as Femi is not truly a monkey," Baba Tund revealed. "He is a human being, a prince from the neighboring kingdom of Oyo, who was cursed many years ago by a powerful priestess whose love he rejected." The words hit Adunni like lightning. Everything suddenly began to make sense. Femi's unusual intelligence, his human-like behaviors, the guilt in his eyes, and the impossible nature of her pregnancy. The curse transformed Prince Ao into a monkey, condemning him to live as an animal until someone could love him despite his appearance, Baba Tund continued. The priestess decreed that only true, unconditional love could break the spell. "But what about what he did to me?" Adunni whispered. "How could love involve such violation?" Baba Tund's expression grew serious. The curse had a cruel twist. When someone finally showed him genuine affection, the spell would begin to weaken, but at great cost. During your illness, when you were vulnerable and he was caring for you, the magic took its course. The union that created your child was also the key to his freedom. So I was just a tool for his curse. Adunni asked bitterly. "No, child. Your pure heart and kindness chose to love a creature others would have feared or rejected. That love was real, and it awakened his own capacity for love. But the magic's price was heavy for both of you. Where is he now?" Adunni found herself asking, surprising herself with the question. "The transformation has begun," Baba Tund replied. "He suffers greatly as the curse breaks. His body is changing from animal back to human, and the process may kill him if he does not receive help soon." Adunni felt a complex mixture of emotions: anger, pity, confusion, and something else she could not quite identify. Despite everything that had happened, she could not bear the thought of Femi dying alone and in pain. "What must I do?" she asked quietly. Following Baba Tund's directions, Adunni ventured deep into the forest where few villagers dared to go. The ancient priest had warned her that the transformation would be difficult to witness, but she felt compelled to see it through to the end. She found Femi in a small clearing, barely recognizable. His body was contorting painfully as it shifted between animal and human form. His fur was falling out in patches, revealing smooth human skin beneath. His limbs were stretching and changing shape, and his face was becoming more human with each passing hour. The creature that had once been her companion was now something between monkey and man, suffering tremendously as the curse fought to maintain its hold. When he saw Adunni approaching, his eyes filled with gratitude and relief, though he could not speak through his transformation. "I do not know if I can forgive you," Adunni said honestly, kneeling beside him. "But I cannot watch you die like this." She brought him water, cleaned his wounds, and stayed with him through the night as his body completed its change. The process was horrifying and beautiful at the same time. Magic undoing years of imprisonment, but at great physical cost. By dawn, the transformation was complete. Where Femi the monkey had lain, now rested a young man of extraordinary beauty. His skin was smooth and unmarked, his features noble and strong. Even unconscious and exhausted, he possessed the bearing of royalty. When he finally opened his eyes, they were the same gentle, intelligent eyes Adunni had come to know, but now they belonged to a human face. When he spoke, his voice was cultured and refined, bearing the accent of educated nobility. "Adunni," he whispered, his first human words in years. "I am so sorry for what I have done to you. I am Prince Ode of Oyo, and I have loved you since the first day you showed me kindness." "You violated me," Adunni replied, though her anger had diminished seeing his transformation. "You took advantage of my illness and my trust. The curse controlled my actions during your fever," he explained desperately. "I fought against it, but the magic was stronger than my will. I have hated myself every day since, knowing I had harmed the only person who ever cared for me." As they spoke, the sound of approaching voices echoed through the forest. Word had spread that Adunni had been seen heading toward the forbidden part of the forest, and a search party was coming to find her. The villagers who found Adunni with Prince Ao were stunned into silence. The beautiful, well-dressed young man bore no resemblance to the monkey they had known as Femi. His royal bearing and eloquent speech immediately commanded their respect, even as they struggled to understand what they were witnessing. Prince Ao addressed the gathered crowd with natural authority. "I am Prince Ao of the royal house of Oyo. The woman you have been persecuting is innocent of any wrongdoing. The child she carries is mine, conceived during my time under a terrible curse." The villagers listened in amazement as he told his story, how he had been transformed into a monkey as punishment for his arrogance, how Adunni's kindness had begun to break the curse, and how her love had ultimately freed him from his animal prison. Chief Adelik, recognizing true nobility when he saw it, immediately fell to his knees. "Your Highness, we had no knowledge of your identity. Please forgive our treatment of this woman who was clearly chosen by fate to be your salvation." Within days, representatives from the royal court of Oyo arrived in the village. Prince Ao's disappearance years earlier had been a source of great sorrow for his family, and his return brought celebration throughout the kingdom. The prince's account of his curse and rescue spread quickly, becoming legend. Queen Mother Bizi, Prince Ao's mother, personally came to meet Adunni. The regal woman studied the simple farm girl who had unknowingly saved her son, seeing past her humble origins to recognize her pure heart. "My son tells me you showed him love when he appeared to be nothing more than an animal," the Queen Mother said. "Such compassion is rare and precious." You are worthy to be his wife and bear his children. Prince Ao formally asked for Adunni's hand in marriage, but she hesitated. The man before her was kind and handsome, clearly devoted to her, but she still struggled with the memory of how their relationship had begun. I need time to think, Adunni told him honestly. Too much has changed too quickly. I must decide if I can build a future on such a troubled foundation. The prince accepted her request with grace, establishing himself in the village while he waited for her decision. His presence transformed the community, as royal attention brought prosperity and opportunity to the humble farming settlement. But Adunni faced the most difficult choice of her life. Could she marry the man who had violated her, even if it had been beyond his control? After weeks of contemplation, Adunni realized that holding on to anger would only poison her future and her child's. Prince Ao had proven his love through patience and devotion, never pressuring her for an answer while making it clear that he would wait as long as necessary. I have decided, she told him one evening as they walked through her cassava farm. I will marry you not because of your title or wealth, but because I believe you are truly sorry for what happened, and because I see the good man you have become. Their wedding was a grand affair that brought together both royal tradition and village customs. The entire community participated in the celebration. The same people who had once shunned Adunni now honored her as their future princess. Prince Ao proved to be everything a husband should be: gentle, loving, and completely devoted to Adunni's happiness. He helped her expand her farm into a thriving agricultural enterprise that provided employment for many villagers. Together, they worked to improve life in the community that had become their home. When Adunni gave birth to their son, the child was perfect in every way, healthy, beautiful, and bearing the noble features of his father. The birth was attended by both the village midwife and the royal physicians, ensuring that the next heir to Oyo's throne entered the world with all possible care. Prince Ao held his son with tears of joy in his eyes. This child represents redemption, he said softly. Born from love that conquered impossible circumstances, he will grow up knowing that barriers can be overcome through compassion and understanding. The village that had once ostracized Adunni now celebrated her as a symbol of hope. Her story spread throughout Nigeria, inspiring people with its message that love could triumph over any obstacle. Young women facing difficult circumstances would remember the farm girl who had shown kindness to a monkey and been rewarded with a prince's love. Years later, as Adunni watched her children play in the same cassava fields where she had once worked alone, she reflected on the strange journey that had brought her such happiness. The loneliness and pain of her early life had been the preparation for a love story that seemed impossible but had become beautifully real. Prince Ao often reminded her that she had saved him in every way a person could be saved, from his curse, from his arrogance, and from a life without true love. In return, he had given her a family, a purpose, and a love that would last forever. Their story became legend throughout Africa, proof that even the most impossible circumstances could lead to the most beautiful outcomes when approached with an open heart and unwavering faith in the power of love. Before you go, now we ask you, was she right to forgive him and take him back? Or should she have sought justice and let the law speak? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. We're listening. If you haven't yet, kindly like, share, and subscribe. It means a lot to us.